Well, thank you everyone for joining us again today for the third in our four-part series on grants, this one on meeting grant agencies. I'm Jeff Henwood, the Senior Director of Policy and Advocacy with Alberta Municipalities, and we're joined once again by David Kincaid, and also a couple of special guests. We've got Ryan from the Government of Alberta and Patrick from FCM. So I won't spend too much time talking about their bios. I will throw those in the chat for everyone, and maybe I will take it over to David for some opening remarks and get into things here.
Okay, thanks so much for that, Jeff. And if you don't mind throwing their bios into the chat, that's great. A couple of announcements, everybody. First of all, pretty awesome day today because our topic was meeting grant agencies, and I just wanted to, before we turn the floor over to them, just say a few things. So, as Jeff mentioned, this is 3 of a 4-part series. So the first webinar we did was sort of grants in your municipality, everything you need to know. That recording is in the chat right now. And just maybe give me a thumbs up that you're getting that, if that's okay. Then the next one we did was your grant calendar. So that is right there. There's the recording for that as well. And then, so we're kind of building this story, right? So where do grants come from? And then there was this building your grant calendar, which if you need that list of grants, let me know, okay? And I will attach it in here for you. And then today was like meeting grant agencies. And so when I was speaking with Jeff, I said, oh, wouldn't it be amazing if we had some grant agencies come and talk about best practices? Well, lo and behold, we've got Ryan from the Government of Alberta and Patrick federally, the Canadian Federation of Municipalities. So this is just an awesome day. So Aaron, I'll get that to you in just a sec. So yeah, it's wonderful. And what we're going to do is I'm going to turn it over to them and let them kind of talk. Ryan's going to go first, and then Patrick will go, and then we'll kind of open up the floor to questions. To help them, we usually do a poll. This is really helpful for them to kind of know a little bit about you. So I'm going to launch our first poll. Plus, they're super fun. But I've just launched a poll. If you just take a minute and answer that, just to give them a sense of who you are. And some of you may not be municipalities, so you can put don't know or other if you want in that. But I just wanted to get a general sense of the folks we're dealing with here. Oh, wow, interesting. I'll share the results with you here in just a minute. We've got 86% completed, so just waiting on 3 more of you. Thanks for doing this. This is great. It looks like everyone it's going to be. Oh, we just had one more. 10 seconds. Okay, here we go. I will end this. And I'm going to share the results. Have a look at that. So we've got, everyone see that okay? Jeff, you got a visual on that? Awesome. So we've got a good mix of everyone. And it looks like, wow, 6 out of 10 of you are sort of new to grants. So, I'll stop sharing that. Thanks for doing that. You'll also get a survey at the end of the webinar, which we really appreciate feedback. And to give you a heads up at the end, we've got one more cool webinar coming up in April on municipalities and partnerships with private industry. We got that idea from you. So thanks so much for that. So with that, I am going to turn it over to Mr. Barber. He will take the floor, and then he's going to go about 5-7 minutes. You've got a little bit more time if you need it, and we'll go from there. So thank you very much, and let's give him a round of applause. I don't know if you can give anything, but any comments or something to thank him for coming. So that'd be great. Ryan?
Oh, not too necessary. Thanks so much, David, and appreciate Jeff and Alberta Municipalities the invite to this, and thank you to David for hosting as well. So as you've probably seen in the chat, my name is Ryan Barber. I'm the manager of regional grant programs, kind of a long name of our department, but I'm in the grants and education property tax branch of Municipal Affairs. So I'm happy to be here today with you to share some best practices and maybe even a few things to keep in mind on the competitive grant programs. And some of the programs that we have are available to you. So pardon me, just while I sort of get my presentation sorted out here.
It's looking great at our end, by the way.
Great. Okay, perfect. So just to start off, I'll talk about a couple of our grant components that we run here at Grants Education Property Tax Branch. So the program is really about supporting long-term sustainability through support for regional collaboration and capacity building initiatives. We've got 5 components under the Alberta Community Partnership, but only a couple are competitive. The first one is our intermunicipal collaboration component, and this supports partnerships, develop or enhance regional service delivery plans, things like frameworks and studies as well. Then we've got the municipal internship component, and this really provides recent post-secondary graduates with some opportunities to gain some knowledge and some skills and some experience in 3 different areas. And those areas are municipal administration, finance, and land use planning. So this competitive grant program is really about building capacity in the municipal sector. Next up, we'll sort of talk about some best practices that we've seen through our grant program over the years. So one of the things that we really like to see is clearly stating the priority of the project. So before any planning or chat with a funder, you should really make sure that the project that you plan to apply for is a priority with the funder. So it's really important to remember you're asking the funder for money, and it's the funder that wants to direct money towards projects or initiatives they believe are most important. So make sure that the text of your application is written so that the reviewers can easily see how your project addresses the agency's priority, whether that's us or another funder. Next up is sort of identifying your partnerships. So for our grant programs, we do have partnerships. For those of you that may be applying to other grant programs that don't have partnerships, I would suggest that you may want to think about your network. So what your partners can do, or your network can do, is sort of identify the weaknesses in your project and see how your partners can help in these areas. So these weaknesses can be capacity related issues, they can be project scale considerations, or can sometimes be technical expertise as well. So in your application, it's super important to showcase your winning team. So I know sometimes it may feel a little un-Canadian to build yourself up and your team in your application, but really demonstrating competence is a super important component of this exercise. Make sure to clearly identify how your partners will assist your project in the application. That's really what it's about. So doing draft, review, edits, and sort of repeating that is important as well. So your first draft, it won't be the easiest to read typically. You may need to plan on writing and rewriting your application at least a couple of times. So this may sort of give rise through this exercise to more questions as you're kind of working through it. But again, this is a great time to reach out to your funder to get them answered. Each round of editing moves the application one step closer to one that's easy to read and really gets across your project well. It's also a great idea to always get feedback from your network. So reach out to your network, don't be shy. I'm sure there's lots of folks that you build relationships with that would be happy to provide you some feedback. Developing your budget. The budget's a pretty critical piece of most grant applications, so take care to satisfy all the criteria there. Some items may not be allowable. You can find those in the guidelines or the schedules of the guidelines if those exist. So make sure that your budget requests are reasonable and calculated and estimated. And if there's an opportunity to provide some narrative on your budget within the application, you can do that, and you should do that. Meeting the deadline. And so it may seem self-explanatory here, but you know, there's a lot of funders that don't have exceptions to that deadline, and our program is one of those. So it's really to maintain that fairness and transparency. So do make sure that you get your application in on time according to the guidelines. No matter how good it is, I've seen very good applications eliminated just simply because they were late. So it's a part of good planning. Just make sure that you're on time for that delivery. Tempering your expectations. So we added this, it's kind of a new one. So keep in mind the nature of the competitive grant program means that it means that the information, sometimes a grant advisor, that's who advises our program, sometimes what they can discuss is limited once you've submitted your application. And they can't review a draft of your application, but what that doesn't mean is that they can't give you some pointers beforehand though. So you can call before that project deadline or before you submitted your application and give you some pointers. Program guidelines usually specify program details, prerequisites, and conditions. So our program provides a scoring guide and examples. So that's a really good way to sort of tailor your grant application as well. Make sure you take a look. If there are review or like panel review information within the guidelines, to take a peek at those. Sometimes that helps you tailor a bit. If your grant program doesn't allow for attachments that you're submitting to, make sure you answer all those questions with all the space provided. So next up, I'll talk about some of the things to avoid. So there's some of the common things we see is a bit of a lack of knowledge of the grant. So make sure you understand what the objectives of the funder and the program are. Just check the guidelines. Sometimes guidelines have schedules, and that's really important. It's worth 5 minutes extra to make sure you don't miss anything. So if you're one of those folks that likes to print stuff off, or you do like electronically, either way, you can use a highlighter. So highlight those sections and really keep them bold for yourself so you understand what the grant's about. Making unrealistic demands. So sometimes instead of approaching it as one party, approach the grant as a collaborative process. So do your homework, know the parameters of your project, and reach out to those program staff if you have questions before. One thing we've noticed, if you're using a third party to assist in the development of your grant application, just make sure that the final product is customized, or the final project, excuse me, is customized to your municipality, and that includes the budget. So review panels can quickly notice duplication between applications. So you really need to make sure that your application is unique to your municipality, and you clearly have identified those needs for your municipality. Next, just failure to follow up. Just follow up on any loose items, and just make sure that you keep your availability and communications up should, we need to reach out to you, our funder needs to reach out to you. Okay, next up, I'll talk about what happens if you are successful. So this is fantastic. So if your grant was successful, the first thing to do, of course, is celebrate. So a lot of work, recognize, goes into that application, and all your pre-planning and all your other great planning and network support helped you get there. So the very next thing to do, though, is to read and understand your grant agreement or any other agreement that's part of that grant. And just note the reporting requirements, special conditions, or any budget items. You want to stay on the right side of that grant program. So the follow-up piece is very important, because you may be thinking about your next project that you could be submitting. So if your project is experiencing challenges or not quite on track, as grant funders, we know that that's going to come up from time to time. So just reach out to us and let us know if there's any issues or you're running into some difficulties. Oftentimes there's amendments or things that we can look at that can make that process a little bit easier for you. If your grant was unsuccessful, we recognize that can be very disappointing, but it is a learning opportunity, and consider that no as a step forward to a better fit in the future. So there you can contact what we call our grant advisors within the program, and they can review with you several different things. Perhaps you might want to ask, what could you have done differently in the application? If the project appears to be a fit, is it possible to submit the application again with revisions in the future? Most times it is. If the project does not appear to be a good fit, ask if they know of a better fit elsewhere. Often we know where else in government or another funder outside may be a better fit. And then reach out to your network. Again, talk to them. Can be a valuable tool. You'll find a range of experiences and best practices with grants. So it's important to remember that any rejection taken constructively really often leads to a much greater grant outcome in the future. And I see this from time and time again. And so that's my brief presentation this morning. I want to thank everyone for the invite again, and hopefully I stayed within the allotted period of time, David. And happy to take any questions when that's appropriate to do so. Thank you.
Mr. Barber, that was amazing, and I think let's give him some thanks in the comments. That's really great. Just before we turn over to Patrick here, I wanted to say a couple things to the new people that are beginning, because there was like 6 and 10 of you. If you're new to grants, it can feel a bit overwhelming at first, but getting content like today is going to really help you. But I just wanted to leave you with one thing. Like at a very high level, grants are 3 steps, right? You find the money, you meet the grant agency, and you write the application. So, we're in that sort of second step, and so many of the tips here have been so helpful, but just remember not to get too overwhelmed. You'll get better at grants every year. So, and particularly to the new people, because there's quite a few of you. So with that, we just looked at provincial grants. And if you remember back to our first series, we talked about, grants are provincial and federal. Obviously, you're with municipalities, so we'll leave that out. But now we'll look at a federal level grants for municipalities. Say you're in a small municipality somewhere in the province. Well, now we'll turn it over to Patrick to talk about his organization and how they work with you. So Patrick, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, David. And thank you very much for the invitation today. It's always a great opportunity for us to talk about the Green Municipal Fund of the Federation of Canadian Municipalities. And hopefully this can be helpful hints and tools and tricks of the trade to help you as you proceed in applying down the road at the Green Municipal Fund. So at a high level, just so you know, the Green Municipal Fund has existed for over 20 years. We've funded over 2,000 projects over that time. I was looking through the database yesterday, and I saw that we had funded nearly over 200 in Alberta during that period of time, which is a really good percentage. And our goal is basically to have regional representation in terms of our funding, so that we have folks from across the country that are benefiting. So Alberta being 13% of the Canadian population, that should be our yearly goal to try to get there in terms of our funding. That being said, I see that we actually have exceeded it a good number of times over the years. So good projects from Alberta have come in, and as a result, we funded more projects. We fund projects in all sorts of different fields, from energy efficiency, retrofits, new builds, sustainable affordable housing, waste to energy projects, district energy projects, community building retrofits, as I said before. And in the next couple of months, we're going to be launching 2 new programs on climate change adaptation, and also on tree planting as well. Recently, I was looking as well through the database, and I saw that we fund projects for municipalities from different sizes, from the Calgary and Edmontons of the world, but also to the Stony Plains of the world, and Canmore, Alberta, and other municipalities as well. So we funded recently different projects in Canmore for net zero fire hall. We funded a transportation pilot in Stony Plains, for example. So it's really far and wide what we can do. Our goal in our team in outreach is really to support your municipalities and your partners in accessing our funding. So we're here to help. So the first step for that's anytime you have a green project, of course, verify if it generally fits into what we normally fund. But even if you're not sure, reach out to us, have the conversation, call us, and we can have the conversation and see where your project can fit. So we're here to accompany you through the process. If there's other examples of projects that have happened elsewhere in the country or in your province that are similar to yours, we can share those test cases with you so that you can have information to help you out in terms of looking at how to actually improve your potential applications. We fund everything from study pilots to capital projects. Some of them are grant-based, and some of them are a combination of grants and loans. As I said, the main starting point is you have to reach out to us when you do have a project, and then we can have those discussions. I was thinking about what makes a really good application, and what are some of the do's and don'ts and things of that nature that can come up from that perspective. Super important, is to make sure that the budgets that you're accompanying with these applications are strong. So when we're talking about different types of budgets, we're talking about class A, B, C, D, E budgets type of thing. When we receive an application that is class A, B, or C, it shows a bit more detail and gives us a better sense of if the application is going to be able to reach our environmental targets from a Green Municipal Fund perspective. And therefore, it's much better for us to evaluate those requests with a very strong budget. So having strong budgets is extremely important in order to be able for us to determine the eligibility of the projects and making sure that you are going to be reaching our environmental goals. When you reach out to us originally, we'll have the conversation with you about what the eligibility is, where you need to go, what are the criteria, so that you know exactly what you're looking for. But a very tight budget with class A, B, or C shows that you've gone a bit beyond that, and you're kind of really showing us that you have the details in mind for the project, and you get a better chance of getting funding when you have higher level class budgets. So that's very important. The partnership was also indicated in the previous with Ryan before as well, and that's super important. Obviously, you don't always work in silos in municipalities. You'll be working with consultants sometimes. You'll be working with private entities that might be delivering services to support your municipality as well. Very important for us to see the clear partnerships involved. Consultants, of course, can help you prepare applications. That's not a problem. All of our applications are through a web portal, so you can follow up with the application within the portal the whole time. And partnerships, it's super important to note is that even though the municipality is 99% of the time our main applicant, sometimes we do have projects that actually come from non-municipal applicants that have a municipal partner. So if you have those type of scenarios, we need to have to show the partnership either through council resolutions or other methods as well. So really important to reach out to us again. We can have those conversations about that. The question of when to apply is important. At GMF, for all of the existing programs, you can apply year-round. There's not a specific intake date to apply. So that's a good thing. You can apply at any time. What I will say is that we do have amounts of money for a fiscal year, as we said before, that we want to get out the door. So if you're going to apply and you want to be in early in terms of a new fiscal year, I would recommend applying anywhere between November and March, so that by the time your projects are approved, you're actually going to be at the start of a fiscal year. And that gives you a really good chance of, if you have a really strong project, of course, of getting funding. You can still get money if you apply in September or June or July as well. That's perfectly fine. But at the end of the day, it's a competitive process. And when we get to the end of the year, we have a certain amounts of dollars left to allocate. But again, really strong projects will find a way. We'll push it into the next fiscal year and we'll make it work. But just giving you a bit of a tip that early applications in a year is a good thing from that perspective. We will be very honest with you about expectations regarding the projects, the way they're being built, and when we're having the conversations with you. We don't want you to waste your time. We want you to have the best chance possible to get funding. So we will be very clear about where your project lies in terms of the overall spectrum of all of our programs and everything else, and to give you a general likelihood of, is this a good one that has a really good potential of funding or not. Being eligible is not always a guarantee of getting funding, as Ryan mentioned before. It is a competitive process, but we can try to help you get your project to a higher level of strength in order to have the possibility of receiving that funding at the end of the day. I didn't mention that we have, as I said, an open intake at all times. Some of the new programs are going to be launched in the next little while, in the next couple of months. We'll have specific intake dates that will be reflected on it. So for those ones, so for the adaptation program and also for the tree planting program, there will be specific times of the year where you'll have to apply. So you'll have to make sure that you're following the rules on that from that perspective. One other thing that I wanted to mention is that when it comes in terms of any costing when you're starting to incur costs for projects, you have to have a full application in at our grant in our application format in order for the expenditures to be eligible. So if you send in a full application today and you've started already spending money, we can't go back retroactively to cover that money. We can only cover costs that are moving forward. So it's super, super important to note that before you start incurring costs for your projects, that you have a full application in at our level. Whether the application has been reviewed or not is not important. We just need to have the full application in before you start incurring money. So that's super important. The only exception to that is the cost to actually prepare the application is an eligible cost that you can actually include within your process. But that's, you know, a couple of $1,000s here and there to prepare the application per se. So that's super important to note. So make sure that you reach out to us, that you have good conversation about your timelines, because your timelines of when you want to start the projects and whatnot can also impact, of course, when you start incurring costs, and we can give you the timeline of how long it's going to take to get these applications prepared. For most of our programs, we have a pre-application, which is like an initial screening, smaller questions, a bit easier, high level, to give us a bit of a sense of where you are. And through this pre-application, we're able to tell you, yes, you're good to go for a full application, or no, it's not, you're not there at this point in time. By doing this pre-application, which typically takes us about 2 weeks to review or less, it just gives us a really good sense. And again, we don't want you to waste your time. We want you to be applying when you have a really good shot of getting funding. And if the pre-application doesn't show that you're ready, we'll be perfectly honest and tell you that. But that being said, if there's a way to move forward and support you and adding other elements to strengthen the application at the full application stage, we will, of course, do so. So this is in a quick nutshell, a little bit of what we do. I hope this has been helpful from that perspective. So the main message is reach out to us early. Let's have the conversations, have strong budgets, have strong partnerships. You can apply at any time. Early fiscal year is good, except for the new programs, which will have specific times. And that's it. And a last point as well, if you're not registered to our newsletter, FCM Connect, please do so. If you Google FCF Connect, you will actually find the information for the newsletter, and you'll have all of the information on all of our funding programs at any time, and that's always a useful tool. And I'll put some information in the chat regarding our contact information where you can reach out to us as well. So thank you very much, and that's about my time.
It's awesome, Patrick. I put that in there for you as well. Appreciate that. Jeff?
Thank you. Maybe if people do have questions, please feel free to put them in the Q&A box, but maybe a couple to start. The first is people are asking for a copy of Ryan's presentation. So just confirm we're able to send that out to registrants, Ryan, or?
Yeah, for sure. Jeff, would you like me to send you that presentation, or?
Yeah, sure. Send it to
Sure.
Dave and I, and we can get it to
Okay.
the
Sounds
registrant.
good.
Actually,
Yeah,
and
definitely do
Ryan,
that.
if it's possible, because I like to take care of things right now, because it's kind of hard to send out to them. Is it possible you could just email that to me, and then I'll attach it in the, or even attach it into the chat right now?
Yeah, I think I should be able to do that, David. Let me just do a couple things here.
Yeah. Let's just try this. If you need help, you can email it to me and I'll do it. But that'll just save extra work and trying to email everybody.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks.
Jeff?
And then Patrick, a question for you is, when is FCM's fiscal year?
So it's basically starting April 1st. So, but because it takes some time to approve an application from the time we receive it, that's why I said if you apply in like November, December, January, by the time it gets approved, you'll be into the new fiscal year. So that's the right timing. But our fiscal year is from April 1st to March 31st. But because it takes a few months to get projects approved, that's the timeline is to apply between November and March, and March is a good time to do so.
Oh, thank you. And then another question for you is the town of Clarisholm was looking to expand their fire hall. Does FCM fund projects like that?
Yes, absolutely. We can have a conversation with your community about that for sure.
Wonderful. And just, I guess, another comment of someone working on an application right now through the Green Municipal Fund. So that's great. I don't feels like a quiet group today, but yeah, if you do have questions or anything, please throw those in the chat or in the Q&A box.
Yeah, I've got like a page of questions, but I won't take everybody's time. But I did want to ask about budgets, because it came up in both of your presentations. What are you seeing, like some bad examples of budgets or budgets done well? Can you just talk about that? And even the different scopes, because I think there might be some people that don't understand what you meant when you said the different classes. If you could just talk about that, Patrick, that'd be great.
Yeah, it's basically the level of detail that is incorporated to the budget. So when we're talking about the construction of a net zero building, for example, if it's a class D or E budget, very often it's general information on the general cost, but it's not looking at, you know, size of the square footage that's going to be involved. It's more high level, and it's not very detailed, and it's not clear to us if the project is going to be able to meet the environmental targets that we have for all of our programs. When you get into a budget that's, you know, A, B, or C in terms of the level of budgets, those budgets are more detailed, and therefore it provides us with more information on what your project actually is going to be, and therefore it's much easier for us to say, yes, this is a project we can fund. So that's where the budget element can come into play and increase your chances of getting funding. And the other thing as well that I'll mention is that we also are very glad to share tons of examples of projects that were done similarly in other communities. And you can even reach out to some of those folks as well. And we share that information so that you can also have those conversations with your peers that are doing similar types of projects. So if your municipality is doing a new fire hall, we might refer you to the folks in Canmore who are doing it right now, type of thing, as an example. So this is where we can be a link to other communities as well.
And Patrick, just sort of one follow-up to that, and I think this is just to everyone watching. I think it's kind of nice because one of the risks in grants is, oh, I do all this work, I build all this thing, and then I get a no. But what I'm hearing you say today is, hey, you can come in early in the process, say, this is our idea, this is a rough estimate of how much it's going to cost. Is this a go-no for you? And you can kind of give feedback at that stage before they go too deep. Am I understanding that correctly?
Absolutely. As I said, we want you to get the best value for your buck in terms of your investment of time to prepare this documentation. So the pre-application helps us screen that to be able to give you a real good sense before you go too deep into the process, so that you're in the right track. And even after you've sent in a full application, the next team that takes over a full application within our team also will work with you to improve the application to give it a better chance of getting funding. You know, at the end of the day, there's no commission involved, there's no profit involved for us. It's all about getting good projects out, and we want to support your communities in doing so. So we're going to do everything we can at my level and my team, and then at the teams after you send in a full application, to increase the value of your application, to make it stronger, so that when it does go to peer review, because there is a peer review process at FCM, that you'll have a good chance of getting funding at that point in time. Is the GMF available for First Nation communities? I see in the chat. I can answer that as well. So the answer is yes. We have funded projects in the First Nation communities. There are some different elements in terms of the criteria and the status of the First Nation community in terms of what we can and cannot fund. So there needs to be a bit of more information in terms of the incorporation of the First Nation community and whatnot. But yes, absolutely. We've funded a lot of First Nation communities in the past, and we can continue doing so in the future.
Thank you, Patrick. Another question is, would a dam project be eligible? The dam must be brought to current standards and is a large project.
Unlikely. If there is a climate change connection to it, in terms of avoiding potential flooding and things of that nature, we could have a conversation with the new program that's going to be launched, but that is something that is going to be launched later this year. My initial instinct is that's not a natural one that we would fund. But that being said, when the new program is launched, I would certainly recommend that we have a conversation and see if it's something that we could potentially consider as well. So to be determined, I guess, is a good answer to that one, to be fair.
Well, thank you. And then someone did ask for your contact info, which I know you did put in the chat earlier. I can maybe re-up that in the chat here for people. And I guess more details on this dam project is that the dam is leaking, and that's why it's in need of repair.
Right. We'd have to see in the new offer for the new program if that's something that could fit. So we'd have to verify, and depending on the cost of it as well. That program that we're going to be launching is for grants up to $1 million for small climate change adaptation types of projects. So we'll have to see if that one could potentially fit. We can have a conversation with that. I'll leave you my email address in the chat as well. I manage the teams that do a lot of this work, so I would basically refer you to somebody specifically if you're doing one type of project or the other, but feel free to reach out to me directly and I'll be glad to direct you into the right space within our teams for any of your projects.
Thanks, Patrick. Another question that came in is, can you match provincial grants?
Yeah, our funding is stackable with other grant agencies, so whether they're provincial, federal, or whatnot. Even though we are federal in terms of we do get our funding through the federal government, we are considered a municipal grant when it comes right down to it in terms of your dollars. So our dollars, when we send dollars to your municipalities, it's considered municipal dollars, and we can be stacked with provincial dollars as well, private entity dollars as well. We don't have a limitation from that perspective.
Thank you. And next question is, what is the typical waiting period to get the result of an application?
Yeah, absolutely. So from the time of full
Maybe
application,
Ryan and Patrick.
yeah, I'll let Ryan answer that one first.
Sorry, just cut out a little bit on my side, Jeff. What was the question?
Oh, sorry. It's what is the typical waiting period to get the result of an application?
Yeah, well, the waiting period varies. So our grant program launches in the summer and we close in the fall. There's a lot of back end work that goes into that. There's a panel is convened and then recommendations are made to the minister. The minister's decision, typically we say needs to be in by March 31st, legislated actually by March 31st of 2024. So there can be a little bit of a wait, but oftentimes, if we were to say our deadline this year was October 2nd, so usually it's about a four month for those.
Thank you. And Patrick?
From a time of full application comes in, it's around 5 to 7 months typically to get the confirmation of the funding. It can be a bit quicker sometimes for studies and smaller types of projects. When we're talking about capital projects, we're certainly looking at 5 to 7 months. So that's our general process. We do also have a process where we have peer review. Then we actually have to have our board, which is elected officials from across the country that have to approve it. So there's multiple stages. They don't meet every week. So that's why it takes about 5 to 7 months. But sometimes it can go a bit quicker depending on the types of projects. I do see a question here on available resources for municipalities for measuring environmental efficiencies. I'll actually put into the chat a link on some of our resources that we have available for communities that can access them. We also have tons of webinars on specific types of project and whatnot. Actually, tomorrow we're actually launching some new elements within our existing program. So there's going to be a lot of communication on that as well, and we'll share that. I can share that link regarding the resources that we have. But yes, there's tons of resources, and if you reach out to us and you tell us the type of project we have, we're going to basically send you back the specific information that you actually need for your projects as well from those conversations. So that's a big part of what we do is capacity building, sharing information, that type of thing.
Great, thank you. I don't see any other outstanding questions, so I don't know if David's got one maybe for the group, or if we should move towards wrapping it up, or what you think there.
I sort of have, one kind of, Ryan, you kind of gave us some extra nuggets there on the writing side as well. And, it's around sort of, I'm kind of merge a couple questions here, but you talked about, expectation management, project priority, talking up your teams. And then there was this kind of like, hey, don't duplicate things. You can write in the financial notes of budgets. And I just kind of got this vibe from you that what you're looking for in applications is, it's going to sound kind of corny, but it's almost like authenticity, like just an effort to be really clear on what you're doing. And given that there's a lot of new people on the grants, could you just speak to that, sort of that person who's new, they're submitting these for the first time, maybe just some overall comments, and then we'll say goodbye.
Yeah, that's a good point, David, and that authenticity piece is a big one, because at the end of the day, these grant projects or these applications are also being reviewed by humans, and they have specific criteria that they're reviewing. But something that is personalized, something that is authentic, that is real for your municipality, that really demonstrates how this project is going to take something to the next level for you, or how it's needed. It's really about demonstrating that need, and that authenticity just plays so well in front of those people that are reviewing your application. And so, ensuring there isn't duplication if you are working with partners, and sometimes there's multiple projects. They may not directly be in partnership, but they may lead into each other. And so sometimes you might want to cut some corners and save and use some similar information between those. But really, those panelists at the end of the day, those reviewers are looking for that authenticity, David, that you've identified, and it does help through that process.
Okay. Thank you for that. I think, Patrick, did you have any final comment on that?
No, I'm good on that.
Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to just say a last word then, Jeff, to everyone that's following out there is, just do your best. I think that's what's great here is you got humans, they show up, humans, but kind of not funny in the tech world we live in, but they just do your best, try to tell your story, be organized. You can reach out to, great people like this who are willing to help you, and you can do it, right? You can do it. So don't be too I know sometimes it can be kind of tough, but you can make a real difference in your community's lives. And by showing up here today and sticking around this long, this is great. So thank you. There'll be a survey at the end. We appreciate your feedback. And with that, Jeff, unless there's anything else, we'll say goodbye. We'll have the recording available. Oh, and the slides. How do we make out with the slides, Ryan? Any update on that, or do you need me to email it out later?
Yeah, I forwarded it your way, David. I think it's it may have come by email here. It's probably a little bit of a bigger file. Shouldn't be too big though.
If you want, because I know there's some notes and stuff, rather than me rush this, there's my email. If you do want the slides, because only one person said, if you do want them, the video will be available. Please email me. I'll just make sure it's right, and I'll get that to you. So with that, we'll say goodbye. There's a survey. We'd love your feedback as always, and we'll see you next time.
Yeah, hope to see you in April. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks again for the invitation. It was great.
Yep. Thanks, Patrick. See you, Ryan.
Again, bye-bye.